we have a rather robust agenda. We're going to change the order a little bit because we do have some guests with us. We'll have the North Point Florida discussion, then we'll have the district attorney, and then we'll move to Mr. Sweats, and we'll proceed with the rest of the agenda as outlined there, okay? So we're going to call the meeting to order. We already did a pledge and a moment of silence. Roll call, Ms. Lawrence.
Present.
Mr. Haas? Ms. Hauk?
Yes, here, sorry.
Ms. McDermott?
Here.
Mr. Perry?
Here.
Ms. Radel?
Here.
Ms. Seven?
Here.
Mr. Schnee?
Present.
Mr. Urban?
Here.
Mr. Pogue?
Here.
Mr. Haas? Mr. Haas?
You're muted, Mr. Haas. Go ahead.
Mr. McGinley?
Present?
And Mr. Haas, are you there?
Okay. We have 10 present.
And present, 10 verified.
Okay. Additions or deletions from the work session agenda? Motion to adopt. Motion to adopt.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Second, Kendra.
Okay. Perry, Ms. Radel, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any in opposition? Any abstentions? None heard. Motion carries. We're going to go down, like I said, to the North Point Lurder presentation. Who was on the call with us this evening that would make that presentation?
Attorney Brian Stahl.
Okay. Attorney Stahl, you have the podium.
Good evening, Mr. McGinley. Good evening, council. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you very much, and thank you for the opportunity to present, and thank you for the sliding me up the agenda. I sincerely appreciate it. I first want to extend apologies on behalf of Brent Miles from North Point Development. Brent has presented in the past to this council. He is literally on a flight home as we speak. He had some flight arrangements that got adjusted. So he does apologize. I extend his apologies to council that he's not able to give this presentation to you tonight. But I'd appreciate council relaying high marks for my performance. Before council this evening is a LRTA request. Council is now very familiar with LRTA. I believe it is entertained already at least 2 separate LRTAs for industrial development projects. This is very similar to those types of projects being proposed, and is the 4th one being proposed by North Point Development. This particular project is in the Hanover and Newport townships in the lower South Valley. It's almost unbelievable that it's the 4th time that we're in front of council. It was about 5 years ago with the first project, which turned into the Chewy, Adidas, and Patagonia sites. So it's really been a good track record that North Point is building, and we sincerely appreciate local government partners like Luzerne County Council. Drawing your attention to the presentation materials that were included in the work session agenda. Page 47 provides some background on North Point Development. Since County Council heard from North Point again about 5 years ago, they are now the #1 industrial developer over the past 5 years nationwide. They're particularly proud, though, of their investment in Pennsylvania. Turning to the next page, page 48, highlights 5 examples of that investment in Pennsylvania, and specifically here in Luzerne County. If you look from left to right, there's 5 different projects at 2 different project sites. The success that North Point has had here in Luzerne County, again, is due in large part to the support from its local government partners like County Council. True Value building itself was developed by North Point Development. It became True Value's crowning jewel in their renovation of their distribution network here in northeastern part of the United States. So you've got some really first-class companies that are attracted and drawn here to Luzerne County to make significant investments. If you see, that was True Value alone was a $97 million capital investment made possible in part due to the LRTA benefits that are approved by council to attract those types of tenants and create the jobs that they do. If you turn to page 49, that gives a snapshot of really the South Valley and the North Point projects that have been developed here in Luzerne County. If you look, that depicts essentially Hanover Township, Nanticoke City, and Newport Township. In the bottom left-hand corner of the map is the site that we are here tonight on. It's known as the Bliss site, currently owned by Earth Conservancy. We're particularly proud of the work that has been done. And if you see the summary of the number of jobs that have been created by this industrial development, over 2,500 jobs have been generated, new jobs generated by this explosion of e-commerce and the development of warehouses. The job counts do not include the proposed projected job counts for the Bliss site, which will just continue to add to that success. In addition, there's been over $478 million, almost $479 million of private capital investment right there in the South Valley at those outlined sites. So it's something to really be proud of and part of the story of the economic renaissance that's happening here in Luzerne County. Turning to get a little more granular on this particular site on page 50, shows the Bliss site. The Bliss site is currently owned by Earth Conservancy, which means that it does not generate any real estate tax revenue today. It's about a 121-acre site. North Point is planning to construct 2 warehouse distribution buildings. Building 1, if you see on the left-hand side of this site, is located in Newport Township. That's going to plan to be approximately 1.3 million square feet of warehouse distribution space. And building 2, about 540,000 square feet, is located in Hanover Township. Access to this site will be off the Prospect Street roundabout, located off of Middle Road, just to the south of the PSTI building on the Luzerne County Community College campus, if you're familiar with that. Newport Township has, we've gone to both Newport Township, Hanover Township, Greater Nanticoke School District, and the Hanover Area School District. And while I don't speak for any of those boards, I think it's safe to say that they're all enthusiastic and very excited that these projects continue to be attracted to our communities. They have all considered LRTA, and they have all adopted LRTA based on the same schedule that's being presented to council this evening. Earth Conservancy has done a very commendable job rehabilitating this site. It's an old mine-scarred area, but there's much work that is left to be done to make these sites ready for development. And that's one of the requests, one of the reasons why LRTA is continue to be used as a tool to really assist in the redevelopment of these sites so that they can become positioned for industrial occupation. North Point intends to invest $125 million in this site. And with that $125 million private investment, they're anticipating on a conservative basis that it will generate approximately 600 jobs to maybe 1,000 jobs at that location. Turning to the last page of the presentation showing the proposed LRTA schedule. As I referenced earlier, the schedule that is being proposed to council is the same one that has already been approved by Hanover and Newport Townships and by Greater Nanticoke and Hanover Area School Districts. And it's the same schedule that County Council has approved for 2 of the past 3 North Point projects, both the Hanover 9 site, which was the True Value Street Retail, and the Chamber Loomis site, which is, I believe leases are signed, but I don't believe North Point's at liberty to disclose who those tenants are just yet. The proposed taxes at the site, again, it's not generating anything today. Upon the sale of the property and transfer to North Point, the land will go on the tax rolls and the land will be taxable throughout the entire LRTA period, as council knows. We estimate that the land value in the current millage will generate a new amount of $58,000 per year, approximately $58,000 per year for the land. And then once the abatement schedule starts to tailor off in year 8, we expect then the building value will start to generate. Throughout the first 10-year period, we estimate it would represent almost $1 million in new tax revenue for the county, about $931,000. And if you take a snapshot of the 10 years after LRTA completely burns off and look at that total 20-year period, we're projecting about $7.8 million in new tax revenue for Luzerne County. And again, this isn't generating anything now as it sits with Earth Conservancy being a nonprofit. So County Council has been a great partner, as have the school districts and the municipalities, and it's part of the success. I mean, you're absolutely a necessary part of the success for these projects. County Council can be proud of what has been developed, proud of the companies that have chosen to locate in our community, and we respectfully request that Council approve the resolution before it for LRTA and continue to build on the success.
Okay. Ms. Attorney Stahl, is that your presentation?
Yes, thank you, Mr. McGinley.
Okay, questions?
Steve has some comments here.
Go ahead.
I understand, that the project's been a great success, and I know that, council has voted on many warehouses and warehouse projects in the recent past couple years, past few months. I'm beginning to think, though, that we're oversaturating our county with warehouse space in general. I'm only seeing it I happen to work in one, seeing it as a problem with, I guess, the entire economic sort of formula right now is trying to find people to work in these warehouses. I mean, I know it's probably a good problem to have, that there's more jobs out there. However, I don't know if we have the actual employee pool in this county and in the surrounding counties to fill all this space. We're seeing the wages, obviously, in the corporate world get driven up in this area, which is a good thing. It's well beyond the $15 minimum that certain parties want to see. And we still can't get people to work, numerous call-offs, things like that. I think one of the biggest issues is trying to find people to do selection work and also to do truck driving work. You've got companies now that are doing $15,000 sign-on bonuses for drivers for CDL licenses, and $3,000 to $5,000 for even selectors for referrals. That's for existing employees referring new employees to a company. So it has driven up wages tremendously in the warehousing sector, but it's also caused other unintended consequences, that the people that are already here can't find workers to work in those facilities. It is sort of a laborious job. It is physically brutal on some people. So we probably have to have another discussion as council on how do we right size sort of the economic climate in this county. It's nice that we have all these businesses that want to come in, but we also need additional people from outside of this area to move into Luzerne County to fill these jobs. And the other factor is that in certain other sectors, maybe like in the restaurant industry and things like that, when you're able to go get a job at $18 an hour or more in a warehouse, places like fast food businesses and restaurant businesses can't find enough employees to work their facilities or their businesses at this point. And there's a huge disparity in wages. We're talking like, $8 to $10 an hour in the restaurant business versus 18 to 25, 26, 27 an hour in the warehousing business. So, being involved in food in my own work life, being in IT in that industry, I see the problem on both sides of the fence right now. I think we need to tread lightly. How much more warehouse space are we going to bring in here? And because I just don't think we have enough people in the work pool.
Okay. Other members of council?
Question, Sheila.
Go ahead, Ms. Saban.
Yes, Attorney Stahl, I just was wondering, I know that we had a lot of discussion originally when North Point first came in, and I assume that this will continue. How have you, that you are using and that you will continue to use as much as possible our own labor pool?
Absolutely, and thank you for that question, Attorney Seidman. With this project specifically, we've engaged, I think, more with local labor than we have on any other project to date in Luzerne County. And that's, we had the door open to local labor throughout the process. But we absolutely are in continuing the partnership with local labor, and any of the outside contractors that are potentially in the running for being the general contractor in this particular project are well aware of those requirements. And I would, I don't speak for local labor at all, but certainly we've had very productive conversations, and my understanding is that there will be many jobs from local labor on this particular site, more so than any other North Point project to date. And we're proud of that. We're proud of the hard work that's been done to really pull in more local labor for this project.
Great. And the second question is, are you involved in any partnerships or programs with the community college? You're so close, and you know, they're looking at those kinds of positions and programs up there. Has North Point availed themselves of the community college?
Yes, absolutely. North Point and also the tenants, and a number of the tenants have cooperation with the community college, where they're actually aligning shift times at some of the shifts at the warehouse to be able to take advantage of opportunities at the community college. And some have tuition programs, tuition reimbursement programs for their workers to be able to utilize the services that are at the community college. This site in particular is literally directly adjacent to the college, and that's a great opportunity. The college has been a good partner. We've in the past we've had discussions with the Luzerne County Transportation Authority, LCTA, to make sure that there's busing opportunities that are provided to link these jobs with the community college and these sites with the community college. So yes, there's absolutely that connection, and we look forward to that continued cooperation and developing more professional development programs at the community college that might be available and create more wins.
Thank you. That's great.
Other members of council?
I got some, Mr. Chair, if I may.
Go ahead, Mr. Haas.
Hey, Attorney Stahl, Harry Haas here. Thanks for the presentation. And I'm looking at page 51 of the LERTA schedule. And it says there, page 51, council members, if you have your packet there. In year 11, the county taxes are shown to display $663,632. Can you tell me what property assessed value that would be at a figure like that? How did North Point arrive at that figure?
Sure. So that assessment represents an assumption that there will be a slight increase in the assessment over time. Basically, Councilperson Haas, that's an improvement value of about $95 million split between the two buildings, or the two buildings combined, and a land value of about $9.3 million was the assumption that was utilized in generating those factors. So if you go back to the 57,342 for years 1 through 7, using the current county millage rate of 6.196, I believe, is about a $9.3 million land value and about a $95 million improvement value.
Very good. Excellent. So that being said, I really appreciate that. Would you be willing to entertain, and I mean, obviously North Point would have to take it back to them, with the contract in section point 3.3, and I think that was on page, 31 perhaps. I'd have to go back and take a look at it. But instead of, if we can include perhaps in the contract that the property owner would forego any appeals if the assessment is within 5% of your estimate. So in other words, what I'm trying to say is that we keep on seeing with these LERTs and these KOZs that yes, it sounds good on paper, that we're expecting big results 10 years down the road, and lo and behold, 10 years comes down and the property owners then they appeal their assessment value, and it turns out it's like 75%, 65% of the original estimated assessed value. Would North Point be willing to commit to that based on your own data and what you're looking to develop on the site?
I will certainly take that back and communicate that. And thank you for that point. And I believe this was referenced, and you may have asked the same question to Cross Creek or Hazleton Creek properties.
Yes.
And I was monitoring it at that point in time, and Attorney Rinaldi hit it on the head. So I believe that would be unconstitutional to have a restriction on property owners' rights to appeal. I think that's provided for in the Pennsylvania Constitution in Article 1. It might be right around Section 8, but please don't quote me on the exact section. So although I don't know that would pass constitutional muster to be including in a resolution, I will certainly take that back to my client though and relay that request from council.
Sure. And we know that people can give up their rights. We understand that too. I'm sure Attorney Saban could appreciate that and vouch for that even perhaps. But we're just looking for some good faith effort. I just don't want to see county taxpayers get burned again, because we see this pretty consistently, that yes, it looks really good, but in the long run, it doesn't turn out so well. The other thing too, if North Point will entertain, yes, I remember the fee schedule for the last two buildings we had there, where it's 100% tax abatement for the first 7 years or so. The past two properties the county approved, you were paying attention, they were 35%, what did I say, 65% abatements pretty much the whole way through. So could North Point look into that and consider that schedule as opposed to 100% abatement for the first 7 years?
Again, I will relay it. We will relay that request. I believe County Council also recently approved a 10-year 100% abatement for a project in Hazleton. And the only comment I would have with the schedule that's been presented to council tonight is that this is the same schedule that both the township and the school districts have approved. And it's really been a schedule that's been attractive to potential tenants locating to the area. When they're looking at these schedules, we found that this is almost a good secret sauce to generate and attract tenants that are going to occupy immediately and are going to make the commitment to invest even more in these buildings and generate the jobs that they have. But again, I will take your request back and certainly work with the County Office of Law and relay any kind of reaction.
I mean, it's a colossally great deal, and that's why they are getting snapped up, because I think we're being extremely generous with the conditions, and I would hope that the colleagues would appreciate that on behalf of all the taxpayers, because these are tough times. We've got people are earning more staying home at this point. This Congress is giving away the store, and I think Councilman Urban summarized it too. This is a very tough environment. I think you're going to see the costs of construction skyrocket over these next few months. So if this is approved, I'm sure everybody there at North Point wants to get the shovels in the ground as soon as possible, because it's going to inflate, and we're seeing it's harder and harder to find laborers because you get more money staying home at this point in the game. So I hope you understand the situation we're in, that there's not a lot of revenue being generated everywhere, and so again, thanks for the consideration from our point of view. Sure. With this matter. So thanks for hearing me out.
And absolutely. And you hit the nail on the head that getting shovels in the ground sooner rather than later is certainly our mission as well. More importantly, making sure that those shovels are put in the ground by local labor. And we're very cognizant of that and very appreciative of that. And it's certainly one of our intent. And we know that getting people back to work, especially getting local labor back to work on projects like this are paramount. So we hear council loud and clear. Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay, other members of council?
Another thing too, sir. And just one last thing, Mr. Chairman, too.
Go ahead.
We've got this rain tax here in Luzerne County, at least in the Wyoming Valley area, and these giant warehouses like this are exempt from that, and that is a huge amount of impermeable surface there that's going to be exempt, while everybody else in the area is paying more every year on this certain thing. So again, it's very lucrative, and I just hope you can really be sincere and take it back, and that some folks will come back with some good faith compromises here. Thank you very much.
Other members of the council? Okay, thank you, Attorney Stahl. If we have any further questions or comments, we'll certainly relay them to you. And then we'll be on our second meeting in May.
Thank you, Mr. McGinley. I appreciate everyone's time.
Thank you. District Attorney Sanglo Dolce, you're up.
I'm here, Mr. McGinley.
Okay. You have the floor.
That was that.
I indicated yesterday, I talked to the district attorney, and he was willing to come and be on the meeting this evening, talk about the reorganization of his office and one retirement that he notified us about a week ago, I believe. So go ahead, please.
Thank you to every member of council for the opportunity to address you. I was asked to comment on, I think specifically, the retirement of Lieutenant Detective Debbie Parker. Debbie has been with us for now 32 years. As the members of council are well aware, over the course of those 32 years, they managed to garner some very significant contracts and some raises. Her salary at my last calculation was $108,442. With that retirement, and the position, by the way, is Lieutenant Detective. I'm sure you all know that. It is my intent to eliminate that position. With that, I would create, obviously, a replacement. I should not hesitate to add that Debbie Parker's position, she handles a lot of the child abuse cases. That is something we have seen, what I would describe as a grotesque spike in the time since COVID. Chaz Ballo also works on those cases, more so in the sense of internet crimes against children. We could not afford to do without that position, of course. I think you can ask any member of our Special Victims Unit. With the elimination of that position, pursuant to the union contract, the starting rate for the detective position that I would create would be $47,458. That, by our calculations, leaves enough to cover also a full-time ADA position. The contractual start for the Teamsters contract is $49,000. That total is $96,458. The net gain to the represented line item there is $11,542. I know Councilman Griffiths asked, there are certain buyouts that are associated with people leaving the office. As you know, that's by contract. I have no control over that, nor does council. But we also have line items, various line items that total $75,000 that we account for every year for the contractual buybacks for all people that either sell back vacation or leave the office or would otherwise be entitled to unused time. The buyback money would come from those line items and the savings, which would essentially leave us sufficient funding for the two positions. I also wanted to add, I noted in Mr. Griffith's email, he made reference to my comment about my notice being a courtesy. I didn't mean my email to take the place of the formal notice to council. I noted in our last email exchange, I was asked or criticized for not, notifying council maybe sooner about what was going on. My only intent there was because I knew it was upcoming to give council as much advance notice as possible. The normal procedure for everyone, at least from our perspective in this office, when I discuss and decide to make the change with our office manager, and this is the same procedure done by my predecessor, she will notify Dave Parsnick, and Dave Parsnick will typically send you the formal 5-day notice email. So that my email is not meant to replace that or meant to be a courtesy in lieu of that. I understand that requirement. I was just merely giving council more advance notice than the formal notice.
Thank you. District Attorney, do you want to talk about your reorganization with your changing of your top staff members there?
Sure. As you know, with the resignation of the district attorney, it required a number of changes in leadership in the office. I was fortunate enough to keep many of the same people. The appointment of Tony Ross, of course, as first assistant. There was no change there. Chet Dudek, who has been with us now with 35 years experience, would be, his position would slightly change to, being third in line of two different deputies. Previously, he was one of only two deputies. So with that, because he's taking on additional responsibilities there, he's also solely in charge of all the vehicular crimes. Much to our dismay, we're seeing an increase in those, especially with the pseudo legalization of marijuana. We have all kinds of new trainings and protocols because of people driving under the influence of marijuana is no longer presumptively illegal. We're seeing more crashes as a result. Also, Dan Zola, who was a deputy, is now a senior deputy. My position was that it was unfair to pay him the same amount as a brand new deputy, and that would be Tom Hogan's. All of those people were here and physically present with us every day during the pandemic. And I don't hesitate to add, I was provided, the letter from the Teamsters. I've since met with the members of my office. My comments were not meant in any way to diminish the important and hard work they did during that time. It was meant merely to point out the fact that, these people are also here. They were physically present, handling the day-to-day emergencies that came up, while our ADAs also handled the very important day-to-day work that went on throughout the courthouse, often by video conference or whatever you might have there. So with respect to the change in administration, as I've said in my emails before, I met with the various departments involved who advised the money was there, double-checked it with my office manager. It is present in the salary line item. I understand council's position that it has to move from represented from non-represented. In my discussions, that issue never arose. And I think I also pointed out that historically, that change has been made without incident in this by way of the same procedure.
Thank you. Questions for the district attorney?
Mr. McGinley, I have a couple of questions. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Okay, good. Hey, thanks for coming to council, Mr. Sanguiducci. I appreciate your coming to council and explaining that information. It's very helpful. The question I have is, do you have a number as to what Ms. Parker will get as her longevity pay, as her buyout number? Is it close to 25,000, or what number is that? Can you give us an answer to that?
I don't have an exact number. I think it might be above that. I know the detective's contract has changed over time. I'm not exactly sure what the calculation is right now.
Okay, but you said you do have a line item that has 75,000 in it just for the purposes of those folks that leave, that you might have to budget for that for?
To be perfectly accurate, it actually comes from two different line items. There's one line item has 60,000, one has 15,000. Both are used for the purposes of buybacks.
Okay. The other question is that I have is the let's see, I had something written down here. I can't find my note real quick. Okay, so you do have enough money in your line items to create the other positions from that lieutenant detective position. So that's where you're getting the money for your detective position and the other one that you're going to create?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And the other question I have is probably not related to salaries, but I did ask Budget and Finance. Can you tell me, one of the questions that came up at the last meeting was the lease payment for your 4 vehicles. Are those 4 vehicles leased on an annual basis at $700 a month?
My understanding is that they're part of a lease package, and that was put into a rotating contract. So I think every few years it changes which ones we're paying on. And it's been a while since I looked at that, so I apologize. I don't have the answer to that right at hand.
Yeah, if you could check on that. I think one of the concerns that I brought up, not this meeting specifically, but at other meetings prior, was the issue that, we pay out of machinery and equipment greater than 5,000, which clearly I think that should be a different line item, but at the end of the day, I think the issue is that there was $34,000 paid out of that line item, and it was designated as lease payments to Fulton Bank. And if I do the math and you have 4 leased vehicles and you divide that out by the 34,000, it looks like we're paying about $700 a month per vehicle for a lease. And at the end of the lease, I assume we own the vehicle, but I don't really know. But if you could get any of that information and forward that off to council, I would appreciate clarity on that.
I certainly will.
Okay, and the last question that I had that didn't get answered by, I think the manager I sent last week, and I added on old business, but we didn't get to it under the voting session, was the question of the district attorney's report regarding the suicide that happened at the jail about back in March. County council probably, I know we haven't seen it as county council. I certainly would like to either meet in executive session with yourself, or if you feel it's appropriate to send us the report. I think it's something the county council needs to know, because we have obviously we're starting to have a plethora of those type of issues at the jail. And it'd be very interesting to see what your findings were regarding how that all transpired over there.
I'll be more than happy to meet with council to discuss it. If you wanted my input, I would respectfully submit holding off on that, only because, as you know, we've had 2 more either successful or attempted suicides at the prison, which we are investigating. I can package them together and present what I can to council. I should also say that I've scheduled a meeting, which is going to occur Thursday morning, to discuss what might be happening at our prison. And I don't mean that to criticize the guards by any stretch of the imagination. From what I understand, the last attempt was actually caught by the guards following their timely procedure for rounds. Now, whether, I believe that the last individual, in fact, may not survive, but I would like to discuss with the prison and the county administration, what exactly the procedures are. Are we missing something? Is there something more we can do? I agree. It's obviously an area of concern, not only for our office and the administration, but also for the prison. I've spoken to, the administration of the prison. They're very concerned. They obviously don't like this happening either. It is really takes its toll on the guards every time something like this happens. As you can imagine, finding someone in such a tragic state that's in their care.
Right. Okay. Well, I appreciate you coming to council and explaining those issues to us to justify the salary increases and the position changes. I know we work really hard as council to make our positions as close as we can, and I know the district attorney, obviously didn't have an input other than internally through the DA's office with Ms. Alvanis about how the positions were created when she submitted her budget. So any changes that you feel are necessary, certainly I appreciate the opportunity for you to let us know that. So thank you for your time. I appreciate it very much.
And thank you for having me.
Other members of council? Well, thank you, District Attorney.
Mr. McGinley?
Yes,
Mr.
go ahead.
McGinley,
I'm sorry.
It's Romilda Crocamo. District Attorney Sanguadulce, I just want to say that I've known Debbie Parker for a long time, and I have the privilege to work with her in various capacities. And she was an extraordinary asset to Luzerne County, to the detective and law enforcement. I know she will be sorely missed, and I just wanted to say that publicly, that she really was a zealous advocate protecting children and those who were marginalized. So I know you feel the same way.
I do, and if I was remiss in mentioning that, in talking about the salaries, I echo those sentiments. Certainly, she will be missed.
Okay. Again, I want to thank the district attorney for coming with us this evening. I know I asked him very late yesterday afternoon, and I appreciate the fact that he could get a schedule in order to be with us this evening. And I think it was very helpful to have Mr. Sanguadulce here to make his case and present his information, and I think for council it was very helpful. So thank you again, We appreciate it.
Thank you, and thanks to members of council. I appreciate your dedication to our county, and I'm sure we'll be meeting again soon.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Swets, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. McGinley. As council is aware, around this time every year, we give the first quarter report. If Chair can put it on the screen, it'd be helpful. I have it on my laptop, but just so the people watching the meeting can see it.
Jared, you gonna put that up on the screen?
Thank you,
You guys
Garrett.
see it?
So,
Thank you.
yeah, we can see it. Thanks. So as council is aware, this is a summary of the first quarter. We will go through this. We'll answer any questions that we can, and we'll get a much more thorough report, not only in the coming monthly reports, but also in the media report. So if we can just go to the second slide, please. So this just talks about what I've talked about in prior meetings, primarily the real estate taxes. So some of the things that were mentioned is, while we're not at 2019 levels, as you can see from the slide, we are better off than we were last year. Our assumption is that with all these stimulus packages, not just personal, but businesses, emergency rental, hospitality, as I've said in prior meetings, you see these as budget amendments, and we have quite a few more coming, that obviously more real estate taxes were paid as of March 31st. Also, the bills also went out a little bit later. Normally we do around the February 8th timeframe. We held off till the 16th, and there was obviously a much bigger issue with the mail earlier in the year. So while the mail isn't perfect today, I know early in the year we had people were waiting multiple days to get mail. Our office received primarily checks. Some people did come in, and we received more than in the prior years. Just for some clarification, we have the May 1st number. I think as of today, we're almost at 100 million. We're probably at around $98 million. So a lot more money was paid from May 1st until today, May 11th. So next slide, please. So the third slide is just kind of a comparison, and it just talks about the offices in general. As I said before in some of the meetings, we kind of talk at the high level. You'll get the detailed reports. You'll get the individual lines. We answer council questions on the individual lines. But this is just kind of a graph of year over year of some of the departments. And some of the departments. And you could see that, everyone is very close to where they were. Some were much higher in 2020, and we're not there yet in 2021. Some of the lines are almost even for, like, domestic relations, for example. All three lines are pretty much almost at the same spot. So it really wasn't impacted much at all between 2019 and 2021 in the first quarter of the year. Even with courts themselves being shut down, domestic relations didn't have that much of a change. Next slide, please. So this slide is just the budget by account classification, and this is similar to what you'll see in the audit report. It rolls everything up to kind of a primary spot. This is obviously the expenses. So personnel is pretty much everything personnel related, including benefits. Non-personnel is basically your office supplies and things like that. Debt service is pretty self-explanatory. Contingencies, in actual, we don't have any. As we know, when we go through the budget, we always budget a contingency. Other has some other, kind of things that don't fall in an individual category. And I believe the stuff that Mr. Griffith was talking about is in capital assets. The district attorney's vehicles and some other things are rolled up in the capital asset line. That 17% is pretty consistent. I would say every year, revenue and expense is around 17 or 20% of both revenue and expenses. The other thing next to there is the prior year total to give council some flavor on not just the first quarter, but where we ended last year. So you can see where we were at the first quarter, an update on how we got from 72 million to, last year it was 85 million, and this is the percentage that you're at. So again, high level of where we're at for expenses. Next slide, please. So the next slide is just the same thing of revenue. Again, I think we've talked quite lengthy on taxes, primarily the real estate tax, not just because people have paid more than the prior year, But as all of council and the public are aware, that's 87%, give or take, of our total budget. So it's a very important line item to monitor as it's our primary source of revenue.
Well,
Some of the things you'll see is transfers and interest, rent. Some of the rents, obviously some buildings were impacted. Interest is actually up because some things, or will be up because some of these new grants had interest requirements. Reimbursement is one of the things that I was talking to Adam in Human Services Department about getting reimbursement for IT, for the solicitors. That's work that's done at a county level. And then on the county side, there's no impact. We don't bill between departments on the county side, but on the non-general fund side, if work is done, they are billed. So we did not at this time or the report or even today have the first quarter. So I have a meeting with Adam tomorrow and we'll both reach out to get these reimbursement numbers. They're normally quarterly. The sheriffs for their time at the other buildings that are non-general fund, the time that the solicitor's office puts in that's non-general fund, and as I said, the IT time. So that's primarily one of those. Some of the state stuff is primarily about a quarter late, so that's really normal, even considering the environment. We've been monitoring and we'll continue to monitor it going forward to make sure that any changes need to be made will be made. Just so council's aware, between now and the mid-year, just the actual, obviously we'll have the audit in between, but if we're running short on something, we'll have a plan to either curtail spending or adjust the revenue or come back to council and address any issues. We're not there yet, but we are looking at these items as we go through not only the budget process, but the audit. Next slide, please. So I changed this because I did agree. I got an email earlier that some of this was not all the correct information, but wasn't the easiest to read. So basically, just some high-level information. On March 11th, the American Rescue Plan was passed by the president, proposed by the president, passed by Congress, and we were told within 60 days we'd have an allocation. Well, on day 59, we were told what our allocation is. I believe you saw in prior emails to council, we were told it was going to be around 114 million. Our actual allocation looks like it's going to be 112.8 million. And we received in the final rules, 151 page PDF of rules and guidance. And just skimming them because we just received them yesterday, a lot of this stuff seems to be similar to CARES and even more restrictive. Good news, we're going to have money. And hey, as Mr. Haas and other members on council and the administration, any money we can get, we're willing to take. But it's very restrictive. So because there's the talk of a specific infrastructure bill coming out at a later date, some things like debt service, we were talking about paying off debt service. I don't think we're going to be able to do that, but we will go through and as we said before, work with council on this, get a list of projects, work through the manager's office, and get the information to council. But even though we've had probably 4 or 5 calls before yesterday, nothing. There was preliminary guidance, but there wasn't final guidance until yesterday. Also, as I mentioned before, we have 2 rental assistant grants. We have a hospitality grant. There's talks of more money coming out for either infrastructures or follow-ups on these type of grants. So anytime we get something, we're trying to package things together. So once we get the final amount and paperwork for this 112.8 million, and if we get some other grants either from operations or from the DA office or any other office, we'll try to package 2 or 3 amendments together in a meeting to bring them at one time versus piecemeal bringing one at every meeting. But there's still quite a few out there. As we get them, you'll see budget amendments and we'll bring them to council as we did tonight for introduction. And then the next time for those 3, we'll also have the public hearing and then council will vote on them. That is not a lot of information. Go ahead.
So I didn't mean to interrupt your presentation, but why we're on that, Mark, could you forward a copy of the final guidelines electronically to all of council? I'd like to personally read it myself. And, if we can work in a partnership, I'm all ears about what administration thinks about it too, but, I need
No,
to read
that's
more
fine.
stuff, so.
Mr. Haas,
looking for
I will
200
do
pages
that
or whatever.
tonight. Yeah, I
Thank
will
you, sir.
send the guidelines to all of
Correct.
council tonight. That's not a problem.
Mr. Haas, they're actually in that NACO email that I sent you earlier today.
I'll try to get that to get it out in email.
Yeah, they're in that NACO email that I sent you guys earlier today, but I can pull out that specific link and pull it out to you.
I'm gonna do.
Fantastic.
Okay.
Fantastic.
Mr.
Good to have
Sweats,
them
are
read.
you done?
Thank you.
Just for questions, I am pretty much done. Like I said, I'll answer whatever questions I can
Questions?
tonight, and then anything else could be emailed. As everyone knows, I'll respond to email, and myself or the office is on every meeting, so I'll answer what I could.
And it doesn't affect you at all.
Questions for Mr. Sweats?
I have a question, Mr. Sweats, and I think it might even be more for Mr. Pedri regarding grants.
Go ahead.
And thanks, Mr. Chair. So I was talking to Kingston Township yesterday, and they were looking at finishing up that 911 project with the new system. And there's an issue with securing LSA funds for the portable phones, for the portable radios, rather. And I know they said that there is a drop deadline of June 25th, I believe, with the Motorola contract. And it looks like the state hasn't realized enough revenue from the LSA, obviously with the pandemic going on. So they thought if we could help use our leverage to make sure that everything pans out with that. And again, I think this is more of a Manager Pedri issue rather than you, Brian, but
Yeah,
I'm sure you're aware of it, Dave, and I don't know what we can do to
I would
resolve
be
that.
happy to support any of our townships and municipalities in this. As always, the 911's a big a big matter. Actually, next meeting, Fred and our consultant and the entire team from 911 will be present to give county council a complete update on the project. So I will ask them to specifically address that and hopefully do it as soon as possible.
Yeah, they said 6 weeks they've got to work some magic, so time is of the essence of this one, so appreciate that.
Yeah.
Other members of council?
Yeah, Mr. McGinley?
Yes.
The question I have for Mr. Sweats is I see on the report for the work session, there's something about the P cards program being finished. Is council, I think council should get a copy of your policy and procedure for that P card policy. I'm a little bit concerned. I know I've asked this question before about the accountability of a P card, a purchasing card for members of the administration who have the ability to have a credit card without, and I know you probably see the documentation, but I think there should be a policy and procedure that's outlining how that is handled. So if you could, if you have such a document, if you would send that to council so we could look at it, and I would like to see council probably approve that, because I don't think we've even ever approved the purchasing policy. And the purchasing policy is supposed to be approved according to our charter, but council's never approved that policy. So I see if you're going to have a P card policy, I think council needs to take a look at it and be sure that we approve that.
Mr. Griffith, a P card isn't an actual credit card though. It's a term utilized for accounting for our AP. It's not, you don't actually hand out somebody a card and they handle it and they move forward from there. But I'll be happy to have Brian address any sort of credit card issue we have and work on that matter. But the P cards it's a really misnomer. They should come up with a different name for it.
Yeah, so it's actually not a credit card then, is that correct?
No.
Correct. So it's basically there's two ways. Primarily it's really a ghost card where you as a vendor accept payments. We have to post them up to a portal. You have to draw them down. So it's not just like, hey, AP could send something to a bank and somebody gets it. It goes to the PNC portal. You need to register to be on the P card program. We upload the data, and then you pull down your money. But yeah, we can put something together. But it's not like there's in purchasing in general administration cards sitting around. It's basically just a code that someone can use to draw down their money through the PNC system. But we can certainly share that information. And at this point, there's only around 20 or 30 vendors. It's one of those things where timing really hurt. We were talked about this probably 2 years ago. And, pre-COVID, I think it would have had a lot of steam. But right now, with a lot of the things that we talked about with businesses being closed or not being able to find workers, the program is not where I'd want it to be. And I think it's a lot of outside sources that it's going to take longer to grow than we budgeted. And that's one of the things we'll have to come back with on, some potential revenue shortfalls on where we're going to make it up in other accounts or what's going to have to be adjusted.
Okay, and the other thing I have is on the Elite revenue issue about the getting back the $19,400 from Elite regarding that $100 registration fee. What line item is that being put into? So we could, is that being separated? Because apparently Elite was getting that money, and now that it was been identified, I guess now they're going to cut us a check. Is that how that works?
So either, and I think we talked a little bit last time, it was either in the fee check, because we basically get two checks from Elite outside of the rent. We get the normal check, and then as you know, some of the, when they collect for the school district, they charge the fee. When they collect for the county, they do not charge the fee. So we would get a check for, the system can't be set up to not charge a 5% fee. So they basically take it out on the front end and then give a check on the back end, just the way the system's set up. And I think it was in there, which we code to our prior year taxes fees. But because you brought it up and because we're not talking $600, we were talking $19,000 for this next sale. As we get these checks, I've asked Sean Shimani to put them separate, and we can work on, coming up with the GL in that line that basically breaks it out. So council can see not only for this year, but going forward, what was received in this line. I believe it was in fees prior to this.
Yeah, so it was in prior fees, I guess, is where it was put. But it'd be just very interesting to know how much money we received last year that we put in our budget for revenue from obviously the wrong revenue line item, because this is actually found money, this $19,400, right?
Yeah. Mr. Griffith, this is the first sale that they charged a fee. So there wasn't any previous.
No,
yes.
I think Sean said that the sheriff's office was charging it in the past.
Well, but the sheriff's office is separate. Elite doesn't run that office. That's a separate entity.
Yeah, for the tax sale, I don't think we've had one in the past, and obviously they got held up by the pandemic. So this one that we just had a week and a half, 2 weeks ago was the first one in probably 20 months that Elite's had.
Right.
Yeah, the sheriff's office was charging it prior to that, according to Mr. Shimani. So that money, obviously, we received that money and put it into the line item, so we don't really track it properly. So that's the question. It's found money that's actually, I mean, we'll have that discussion as to whether we think it's appropriate or not. But I mean, $19,400 is good money to find. So thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, and we'll put it separate. It's not a problem.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Sweats. We're going to do the division reports at the end. Ms. Hoc, you want to lead the discussion on the Administrative Code Article 6? Ms. Hoc has been the chair of that committee for 2.5 years.
2.5 years. It feels like 10 years because, we started this whole thing 10 years ago.
Yep.
But yeah, the most recent revisions, it's been about 2 years in the works. So if you look at, and I'm gonna follow the pages in your agenda. I believe we pick it up on page 52, if I'm correct.
I think.
Right. So what we focused on to get this to council is the section on the divisions, because that actually affects the organizational chart. We can have a correct and accurate organizational chart if we get the divisions done. And there's a lot of detail in the description of the divisions. We worked closely with the administration, with the different departments to get everything as accurate as possible. So just taking a look at page 52, in general, what you'll see here, the red line, of course, is the additions or the changes. If it's redlined and crossed out, that means that it was existing language that we are removing, And the stuff that is not crossed out but is in red is what we would replace it with. So we started with the Division of Administrative Services. And the first thing, and this you'll see this consistency in each division, we started with the function of the division. Then the division had the responsibilities of the division. And this whole section in here on information technology is pretty new. But basically, we kind of reordered some of these things and looked at those. If you go on to page 53, then you see the organization of the division, and this is all of the offices and departments that are in the division. And then we proceed under this section as we go on to page 54 to outline the responsibilities of the departments, and then we took each department separately. So the first one is the Human Resources Department. I mean, I don't want to read everything to you. I think you can certainly look it over, and maybe if you have any questions, we could talk about it. I don't know that we'll be ready to vote on this or to introduce an ordinance on this for the next meeting. Do you think, Mr. McGinley?
Well, I think if we don't get any questions, maybe we should proceed with at least passing this Article 6, which is a big part of the.
Okay.
Oh.
All right, I'll continue. I mean, if you, so let's see what happens, because if people take it and take a look at it and have any questions, and there are a couple comments here and there in the margins. I didn't see any yet, but there were some. So the outlining of the Human Resources Department was the first section. The next one was purchasing and acquisition, and again, it talks about the functioning of the department, how the department, who the department is headed, and the responsibilities of the department, and it goes through all of this. Now, there is a section later in the code, which would be back around section 8 of the code, that will talk about the actual purchasing policy, but this is actually just the responsibilities of the division, or of the department, I'm sorry. We did spend a lot of time talking about this one section on page 56, which are exclusions from the contract authority of the county purchasing agent. And so those are some of the things that would not be covered by the county purchasing agent and subject to the processes that are listed there. Just, if anybody has any questions, just pipe up. The Information Technology Department, and again, the information in here, the responsibilities of the department and the different things in these sections were all put together in conjunction with these departments themselves, so that we are getting a good picture of what they are doing. The actual formatting of it, it'll be reformatted once it's approved, so that it's everything is with correct indentations and things like that. But the content is what we're looking at now. So under IT, the function of the department is their department head and the responsibilities of the department. And again, these came directly from the IT department themselves. So I'm going to keep going on to page 59. On 59, you see the organization of the department, and so we have the IT director, and then there's the structure of the department under him. The fourth section here, then on page 59, is the Bureau of Elections and Voter Registration, and again, function of the department, department head, and then the responsibilities of the department. And this took a long time. This was what we spent a good bit of time on in our last few meetings, because this deals with the responsibilities of the Bureau, not the responsibilities of the board. And again, the board is covered in a later section of the administrative code, but this section is just to the Bureau of Elections. And so we refined this with the help of the Office of Law and some conferences that Romilda held with people, with other attorneys and other people that could give us some information about the functioning of the board, and particularly under the charter and the relationship between the board and the Bureau. There's quite a lengthy list there of the Bureau's responsibilities. And then the organization of the department is at the end of that, which is on page 61. The director and then deputy director and administrative assistants are under the director. Okay, then we have Office of Community Development. And again, the responsibilities of the department came directly from the department itself. And then on page 62, we have the Luzerne County Convention and Visitors Bureau. And again, all of these responsibilities, the function, the head of the Bureau. So when you get to page 63, you'll see in yellow highlight, we have the executive director highlighted. There was a question as we went through the divisions, because some of our departments and offices have executive directors where others have directors. So we spent some time discussing those titles. And then that takes us down on page 63 to the GIS mapping department. And again, that continues on to page 64. Okay, and then that's the end of the that division. So then we get to the next division, which is, yes, go ahead.
I think you do a great job going through that. I don't think it's necessary at this point for everybody to, for you to go through page by page, department by department, because I think you've outlined all the information and how to read it and what was deleted and what was going to be added as new language. If anybody has any questions, I think Ms. Houck is probably the person who probably can give you the best answers in that regard. And if anybody, I'm sure if you forward to Ms. Houck, she'll be more than happy to reply to those. And then the next meeting, we'll go from there. And if we have no questions, if we do have a lot of questions, we could bring it back on a work session. If we have no questions, then maybe we can move it for a vote. But we'll leave that up to Ms. Houck and see what kind of responses she gets.
Okay, well, and just to be clear, if we do take it to a vote, it would only be an introduction because it has to be amended by ordinance.
Right.
So it's not once and done. We would actually introduce it at a meeting, and then it would be voted on at a later meeting. So there would be more opportunity for discussion anyway. Okay.
Is that all right?
And again, the only thing you're seeing is section 6. It's just the division section. The sections before and after 6 are still, but this was the bulk of the work. So please look it over, and any questions or anything that you want to add or anything, send to me. Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Done a great job with this, putting this together.
Thanks. I thought I was going to be talking till midnight about this, but that's okay.
Unfortunately, I don't think we should be talking. We have a few other items yet here too, that everybody wants to have a chance to get their item on. So.
I know. That's fine. I get it. Right. Okay. Thank you.
We're good.
Mr. Chair, I think we should give Ms. Houck a proclamation next meeting for all that work. That was a huge task.
She's done a lot of work.
Thanks to the committee.
Yeah, Mr. McGinley.
Thank you.
Yes.
If anybody has any questions, would they please send them to all council? Because some questions may be pertinent that we all could benefit from. So I'd appreciate that.
Yeah, there's no problem. Anybody who wants to send it out, make sure everybody's copied. If, so that if anybody can help out with something, that'd be more than great for somebody to help out with it.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Chris, one quick comment, please.
Go ahead.
Just a shout out to the committee. I mean, the committee, it's a great committee, great work that you did. And I believe no one could have done it better. I know it's a work in progress, but it's just good people doing good work. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for the comment, but I think most of the credit goes to Ms. Houck's work. Ms. McDermott, you're next on the agenda. You want to comment about the 27 parcels, and you sent some other information out the other day, so.
Yes, so this
This is in reference to the purchase that the Pews would like to purchase 27 parcels in the Dallas Township area. Sharon did send out a supplemental agenda packet yesterday, which is huge, I know. Really what's most important in there is the first map. It's a GIS map, which looks like this, but it's a GIS map, and it shows the parcels that they want to purchase. It also shows, right now we only have 5 of those 27 parcels that have a deed with them. So the county, the other 22 have no deed reference to previous owners and will need to have a title search and a quiet title action to make the deed clear to convey the parcels. The county would be responsible for that. However, the Pews are willing to purchase the parcels as is, and they said they would do all the work to get a clear title. So that certainly saves the county money and time. Each lot is under 1 acre, and that makes them too small individually to build on as per the Dallas Township zoning ordinance. So I did include the whole Dallas Township zoning ordinance just so you could refer to pages 93 or 97 and 73. And I did attach those individually. That just shows that it is agricultural, it's zoned agricultural A1, and that you would need 1 acre of land to build on it. And for agricultural, A1 agricultural district, you could have a single family dwelling on there. And again, I just made copies of those pages, included them, but included the whole ordinance in case you wanted to see what it was taken out of. So again, those parcels are too small to be built on individually. So you'd have to purchase more properties, adjoining properties, to be able to put them together to even make them buildable. So that would, they're going to reach out to some different various owners and see if they can purchase more of those to make it 1 acre. And that doesn't even, that we're not even sure that the lots look like, they could have a ledge on them, they could have wetlands. So it may even take more than a couple of lots, even if they do come up to 1 acre, it may take more to even make the lot buildable. Right now, we are not receiving any tax dollars on this 27 parcels. I do know that they said that their son, I believe, or daughter is planning on building a home on the land. So obviously developing the land will provide more tax income for the county, municipality, and the school district. So on the road, on the map, it does show roads, but those are only paper roads. They are not existing. It was drawn, I guess, for a developer that was planning on developing the land, but never did. So if you look on there, and there is an aerial view, a map of the aerial view of that, and it does show the close proximity to the Dallas school, but there really is a lot of vacant land there. There are only a couple of houses that are on Fairground Road that are existing, and they have their own public well and sewer, the septic. There is no, I'm sorry, they have their own private well and septic. There is no public access for the water and sewer. Does anyone have any questions about it? Again, there's a lot of information. I certainly want to be able to answer any questions. I also have Kristen Montgomery from the Assessor's Department if anybody has any questions for her in regards to what the parcels could be worth. Anybody?
Questions for Mr. Montgomery?
One question. I just have one question, Mr. Chair.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for the work on this, Leanne, and I think it's a great idea. I know this was where the old fairgrounds were, and that might also be why they have these small parcels. I think they used to be, like booths or whatever back in the day, but it's a bigger history than I'm aware of. But who owns, so all the other parcels that are the same size, they're all owned by private individuals?
There are
like
some.
These parcels less than 1 acre are just owned by random people.
There are various owners on some of the adjoining properties. The Pews did actually just purchase 315 parcels from an owner, Thomas Williams. And that was, again, 315 parcels. He never did anything to develop it, so he did just sell that to the Pews. They do have other parcels that are kind of in between and adjoining in order to finish what they would possibly like to do, develop it, I guess. They would need to purchase more of those individual parcels from different various owners. Some of them live out of state, some of them left them to, children. Some of them are not paying taxes on them, and that's how the county ended up with them in the first place. They just let it go because the properties really are not worth anything. There were a couple of listings of properties that ended up expiring. People had a parcel listed at a 0.96 acre lot in that same area on Fairground Road. That's just a wooded lot. They had it listed at $32,900. It was on the market for 387 days and it expired. No one purchased it. Another one, an 80 by 150 lot, and it says any offer considered. What they had it listed for was $20,999, and they put on there any offer is, encouraged, but you'd have to walk to it. A lot of times there's no road frontage on them, and you have to walk to them. There's a lot of brush. Again, there is wetlands and different things like that. I don't think anybody has walked them because it is a lot of just wooded area. But those properties did expire. So I know that they are trying to reach out to the other owners. I don't know where they're at on that, but I do know that they did just purchase other 350 parcels from that Thomas Williams, who did own quite a bit of that land. That was zoned, I don't know if I said it, that was zoned agricultural too, or clean and green. So we weren't even collecting that much taxes on that. So if they do develop it, it turns it into maybe put a couple houses on there, we'll certainly get more tax dollars out of it than sitting vacant.
Very good.
What's our next step with this group?
Oh, okay. So yeah, and we're just discussing it today. If you have any questions, you have 2 weeks. We're going to put it on the voting agenda, and all that will be to advertise it for the pews, to advertise it in the newspaper. And so you have a couple of weeks to gather information, but it's just to have them advertise it next.
Okay. Other questions for Ms. McDermott? Again, thank you for your work. You got a lot of information there. You got a lot of detail. We appreciate your efforts.
Thank you. Thanks.
Down to number 6, discussion regarding a resolution removing a member of the Luzerne County Community College Board of Trustees and declaring a vacancy. Mr. Griffith, you asked for this resolution?
Yes, the reason for the resolution was because of the letter that was sent out by the Authority Boards and Commission Committee to ask all our boards, authorities, and commissions if they had members that were receiving any kind of benefits. And we did receive one back from LCCC that stated there was a tuition waiver that the board members would receive, as well as the family members of the board would receive. And I feel that that's a violation of our charter regarding the ability for people to take gifts or things of value. And so therefore I feel those folks who have taken that tuition waiver, or obviously have voted, some of them even voted to provide that tuition waiver to themselves at the last council meeting or the last LCC meeting. So I think that's a clear violation of our charter, which needs to be addressed by council. And I really would like to ask if we can in fact remove those members of the board. We don't have provisions in our charter to a removal process in our charter to remove members of boards, authorities, or commissions. That, I believe, is reserved for Title 53 for quo warranto action. So I don't know how we proceed as a council regarding matters of this kind, where there's a board member or board members who have received things of value that we have to determine have violated the ethics code or the charter, and so therefore they need to be removed. I don't know what our procedure is. I'm going by past precedent, which means we just simply declare the seat vacant and reappoint someone, but I don't know if that's the legal process for that. I would hope that the Office of Law could weigh in and let us know how we proceed with that. I have no problem putting in the names of those folks that were identified by the college that were getting the tuition waiver. But I just want to make sure that that's the proper procedure to follow for council.
Well, one thing, Mr. Griffith, I spoke with President Leary in regards to this particular tuition waiver, and he told me that their last meeting, which is, I think they meet quarterly, they removed that from the board members to have that opportunity. So that has been removed, effective by the Board of Trustees for the community college. So
Well, I would have really thought that Mr. Leary or someone from that board would have sent that information to county council, because I think this is an issue that's been raised since March or probably before that. And I think if that was actually the case, if he would have sent that to council, possibly I wouldn't even have put this on the agenda. But unfortunately, I guess that didn't happen. But I just think that, if they did in fact remove it, I don't know, does council want to proceed any further, knowing that the folks that actually were getting it were the ones that voted to put it there in the first place?
Well,
If I may, they
Go
voted
ahead.
at their last meeting, which I believe was at the end of April, and I did forward you all the communications that I received from their council, and that was identified in one of them that I just recently sent. So the board did eliminate that benefit for the board members.
Okay.
Mr.
Did
McGinley?
they remove it for their family as well, Romilda?
Well, it's for the board members, and that would extend to their families. The
Okay,
board
well,
members don't have any attachment to that benefit, which would mean that their any family member would not.
Ms.
think
Saban,
you
were you
said-
trying to speak?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
I would like to, they've removed the issue. I think that to go any further would be not fair. I sat on that community college board.
Mhm.
I guess somewhere I heard there was a benefit like that, but I wasn't truly aware of it and how it impacted everybody. But I think it would be very unfair to continue to do anything to the individuals that have taken advantage of that. And now that they've removed it, I think that should be fine. No further action.
Yeah, and as you said, Ms. Saban, that's what we did with LCTA, and I think it is appropriate, if that's in fact the case, that we just eliminate that issue altogether, since how they corrected it. So I tend to agree with you, Ms. Saban, that that's what the action was that we took with LCTA, and so that's appropriate for this one as well.
Okay.
Good.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
it's Chris.
Go ahead.
I agree both with Walter and Sheila. We should just drop the issue now that they clarified their statement and removed that from their from their laws.
Yeah. Very good.
Mr. McGinley? It's
Yes,
Linda.
Ms. Howe. Go ahead.
Yes, I think Romilda sent an email out yesterday afternoon, I believe, with this with the new policy that was adopted on April 27th. And it does not mention board members as being able to receive that benefit. However, I would say that I think that 10 years ago, whoever was the solicitor advising that board should have taken a look at what all of their policies were to make sure they were compliant with the charter. We talk about the charter all the time, and we read it, and it's something that's in the front of our minds. But people who are appointed to those boards are assuming that they're being advised correctly, and that they're not necessarily on the lookout for things that need to maybe be cleaned up. So I think it's very commendable that they've made the correction now. But, I think it should be an example to the people on all of our ABCs, well, at least the boards and commissions, to make sure that their solicitor is reviewing to make sure that there's no violations of the charter that might be inadvertent, as I believe this was.
Very good.
And Mr. McGinley, if I could, I just looked at that email that Romilda sent, and I would really strongly ask the college to put specific language in there that states the board. It says LCC employees, and we could go down the issue that possibly they would be considered employees. So I would hope that they would put stronger language in that states that the board is not entitled to that benefit. But I mean, I certainly appreciate what they did put in, but at some point, possibly, maybe we could send something to the board, ask them to strengthen that just a little bit more, just to protect themselves as well as other board members that may come on in the future, to let them know that that is exempt for board members as well.
Okay.
I'll
Well,
certainly, I'll relay that, but I just want to assure council that they removed that benefit that specifically was designated for board members. They removed it. It's gone. I really, I'm not an expert in labor and employment, but I don't believe they want to designate their board as employees, because that brings a whole constellation of rights that I'm sure they don't want to have. But I will relay your your suggestion, Councilman Griffith. But
you.
I want to assure everybody that it's removed.
Okay.
The board made the decision that the board will not have that benefit, and that also extends to any of their family members.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay. Moving down then to number 7. Discussion regarding a resolution to place the American Rescue and Recovery Act funding in Division 99 County's reserve account. And I think, Mr. Griffith, you are also the requester in that regard.
Yes, and the reason for that resolution was for obviously the 112, I guess, million that Mr. Sweats just said they were entitled to. And I saw the email from Mr. Pedri as well regarding that funding. I think it's important that we put that money in a separate account so we can, obviously the restrictions that we've just received from the NACO group, as you know, some pretty strict stuff on there. So I think it should go into a council controlled account, and then the manager can bring projects of whatever nature to us. We can approve that funding and allocate it to those particular line items and amend the budget accordingly. And that way we would have control over that funding and also input. I think input from council is important, and I think that would give us that ability to have the input. So okay. I think it's a good resolution, and I appreciate support on that.
Mr. Sweats, do you want to comment on this?
Thanks, Mr. McGinley. So we have no problem with council being involved. I think my concern, and I think all administration's concern is, as council knows, Division 99 is part of the general fund. So this is something where we'll be receiving the money in the short term until 2024. But when we go to do budgets 5 years from now, I really don't want this, even though it's separate and going to be in collaboration with council, be part of the general fund. I don't have a specific number, fund number to give you right now, but I think similar to some of these other resolutions where we created the 125 fund for CARES or the 140 fund, that no problem being separate. I just don't think it should be in Division 99 because that ultimately rolls up to the general fund.
Am I correct in saying, Mr. Sweats, you are required to have it in a separate fund?
We are. I mean, as I think we've talked before, almost all of these, not just because of the dollar amount, almost anything related to the COVID relief plan, whether it goes into vaccines or the first round when it went into businesses, requires that it's in a separate fund for auditing purposes and for tracking purposes, not only at the state, but with our local auditors.
Okay. So can you come up with something in line with what Mr. Griffith's thought was? We know it's going to be in a separate fund. Is there some way that could be designated for council approval or whatever the appropriate term would be?
Yeah, I think we can do that. And I also think, without hijacking the meeting tomorrow, we could talk to our Budget, Finance, and Audit Committee about this as well. Not making the account, but just, they're aware that we're getting the money. Every county is, and other governments are as well. I think 5 minutes tomorrow wouldn't hurt as well.
Okay.
Mr. Sweats, on that issue, on the other funds we have, like Road and Bridge and those type of funds, we have a separate fund. They don't roll up into the general account, and their department numbers are part of that separate fund. So if we create a separate fund, whether it be, you know, a 126 fund or whatever number we want to designate it as, that would not roll up into the general fund, even if it's Division 99, would it?
I think it's just, and again, I could have misread what you sent. When I see Division 99, I automatically think of general fund, just because that's what we primarily use Division 99 for.
Yeah,
So
no,
maybe
I was thinking if you created another fund, like we have the 125 for the COVID number, you could make a fund 130 and name it ARRA fund and put the Division 99 in there, and it wouldn't roll up, and you could put the number in there as well, right?
You were just saying to use a separate fund, but to use it as kind of the same process where it's council controlled, but not roll up in the general fund. And we're fine with that. I think
that's correct.
My only concern was I didn't want it in the general fund, Division 99. I'm fine.
Exactly.
Well, let's talk to the auditors tomorrow and see if we can come up with something that makes sense.
Okay. Thank you.
Sounds good.
Yep. Okay, we're down to number 8. Mr. Haas. Proposed resolution, the Second Amendment Sanctuary County Declaration.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, members. Hey, what I just did, everybody, I just emailed out the working draft that the committee approved tonight to pass up here to the working session. So the one that I sent out with the agenda packet last week, it's somewhat different because we combined the resolution from Butler Township with one largely taken from Forest County, Pennsylvania, that passed a very similar thing. So if you look at your inbox, it's right there, and I think it's I think we all agree. And if I'm speaking out of turn, Mr. Griffith, Mr. Irvin, let me know. But I just think that this one was more to the point. It recorded a history of Second Amendment issues, and I think it was more clear about what the intention is of this. And as you look at it, I just want to say thanks to Butler Township for putting this out there. And they unanimously supported this and sent this up to council over a week ago. And so you, council members, you got the original one in your mailbox from Butler Township. And I also appreciate all the people who called me over the past couple of days and voicing their support for this. It was really nice, but I told them it wasn't my doing. It was Butler Township. Thanks for giving me credit, but it's really the genesis is from there. And so the legislative committee wanted to pass this up to the council at large to take the temperature and put it to a vote next week. And tonight we're going to have some discussion. I know Sheila came to the meeting and she had some things, and we thought it was best to have the discussion here with the council all together rather than just report back and rehash the same questions and concerns. So I think why don't I just step back and take a look at any comments, questions, whatnot.
Mr. McKinley? Comments for Mr. Haas?
Yeah, it's Linda.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if I'm looking at the most current one. I was looking at the one in the agenda packet because I didn't find anything in the email from today. But, you know, Harry, it refers to the God-given right to bear arms. I'm going to tell you, I spent a lot of time in church, and
that's the old one, Linda.
I don't know. I know you did. Okay. I was going to say, I don't remember anything in the Bible that says thou shalt have an AK-47. So, you know, I had some concerns about that. I did not find, did you just email out a new one, a new version?
You might have to try to refresh it and your screen there.
Yeah, I did, but it didn't load. So all right. I have concerns about this, especially with the, you know, there was just another shooting yesterday. And I don't think that anybody wants to deprive people of the right to bear arms if they're going to, like, for people hunt or do what they, you know, what they want to. But I think there's a serious concern about things like assault rifles and, you know, the need to make sure that people with mental illnesses are, you know, prevented from, because it gives, you know, people who are reasonable and you know, careful gun owners a bad name too. So that is my concern with the whole thing.
Okay. Anyone else?
Yes, Sheila.
Go ahead.
Okay, so Linda, the God thing bothered me too, but since the legislative meeting today, I know they've taken it out. However, there are other issues I have. First of all, I did a lot of research on why this is coming about, this Second Amendment sanctuary resolution. And I went and I read some articles, and these gun sanctuary laws oppose or purport to prohibit and impede the enforcement of certain gun control measures, such as universal background checks, high-capacity magazines, assault weapon bans, and a violation of are all a violation of the Second Amendment, and also the red flag laws. There are many states right now and many counties. It's not Butler, it's not Pennsylvania. There are many counties throughout the United States that are doing this. And they are doing this, first of all, they started calling it Sanctuary Amendment, Second Amendment Sanctuary, in response to some of the places that are sanctuary cities. You know, for Pennsylvania, it's Philadelphia. However, they are not necessarily similar. And even though Mark Rabo brought this up with me before, the difference is that immigration is a federal law. It is to be done by the federal government. States aren't involved in immigration issues. So the enforcement comes from the federal government. And a lot of cities have said, we are not going to help federal government with that. It's not our responsibility. Whereas this issue is a state issue, gun rights, gun control. And at this point, you're saying we're not necessarily going to abide by, I know Harry's going to say, well, we're not enhancing or limiting the rights under the Pennsylvania Constitution, but there's no need for this. The rights are laid out under the Pennsylvania Constitution. And this whole thing started as a reaction to the Parkland school shooting, the ban on bump stocks, the high capacity magazines, raising the age of firearm ownership, the Newtown issue, the Las Vegas shooting, and the recent January insurrection. These issues, I think, are really important, the rationale behind it. This is funded and helped and assisted by the NRA. And also, articles I read, it's also by militia groups behind it. Groups such as the Oath Keepers and other militia groups that were involved in the January 6th uprising and have been involved in those types of things for the last few years. So I have a real issue with the need for this, the rationale behind it. I think it's extremely political. I think it doesn't necessarily just say we're just going to have the same rights as the Pennsylvania Constitution, the federal Constitution. Because if that was the case, then why have it? So there are some of my concerns right here.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Mr. Pedri, your monthly division reports, I'm going to ask you to, if there's any quick summary. And of course, everybody has a copy of the report. So if you have questions or comments, you can direct them to Mr. Pedri and he'll respond to those. Mr. Pedri?
Sure. Quick summary for May. Obviously, the American Rescue Funds We got that information today, got that over to County Council. We originally informed it was $114 million. It's actually going to be $112.8 million is what we got today. We sent the guidelines over today. We're still reviewing them internally to make sure what's going on. I agree with Mr. Swets and Councilman Griffith. I think the best use of these funds would be a non-general fund account that's county council controlled. Similar to a capital plan, we'll come together to county council and say, hey, listen, here's our ideas, here's our recommendations, and then it'll be up to you to approve or disapprove or put in your own recommendations as well. Obviously, it has to be in line with the guidelines, and this is where we have to be a part of this. So it's going to be a process moving forward. In line of the firearms, one thing that I wanted to highlight very quickly in my report is our sheriff's department. When the pandemic happened, a lot of counties had to shut down completely their permits for, as you know, the Luzerne County Sheriff's Department is involved with the issuance of permits for license to carry for firearms. In Pennsylvania is a very pro-gun state. You can have a firearm in your house. You can have a firearm open carry. But what you cannot do is conceal a firearm or carry a firearm in a vehicle. This is only allowed if you have a permit, and that is up to Luzerne County Sheriff's Department in order to issue those. Just in the month of April, Brian Sumsky and his team issued over 673 gun permits. There's a new process involved where people don't have to wait in line, drop all your paperwork off. It's reviewed by the team. If there's an issue, we call you. And if not, we bring you in for the photo. So kudos to our sheriff and his team in doing their duty as well throughout this process. If there's any questions, I'll take them now.
Okay, if we don't have questions at this point, if you have questions when you review the reports, please send them to Mr. Pedri. That being said, we're now open for members of the public.
Mr. McGinley, before we have public comment, could I just ask, Eric Mark asked the issue about the email policy, and I searched pretty much all the documents that I could find, and I sent an email to the Office of Law regarding that, and I have a concern about the issue of us posting county emails on the website if we don't have a policy that states that that has to be done. Somewhere along the line, I thought council passed that, but I don't remember if that actually did happen or if that was something was discussed somewhere and it just happened.
I think, Mr. Griffith, if I remember correctly, there was no policy per se, but the council did approve the fact that that would be, those emails would be available and posted on the website. I think Mr. Lawton said there was software that would do that at that point in time, and that's how it developed. I don't believe we ever discussed a policy.
Yeah, and I looked through everything. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Romelli. Go ahead.
And Mr. Griffith, I am looking into it. I had some personal issues that kind of delayed me from addressing all of the issues that have been raised, but we will issue an opinion and a recommendation.
Yeah, and that's kind of my concern, and I know we have right to know laws, and I know we have, and I'm not trying to be non-transparent with the public in any fashion. I'm just concerned that we're just posting council emails up there and I know you do your due diligence to make sure that they're appropriate to be posted. But if we didn't pass that ordinance or resolution or motion in council to do that, I think that's something that we need to look at first and foremost. And if we need to post that and make that motion, we can do it. But I said, until we actually have something that says that's something that this council's approved, I don't think we should be posting emails of county council. If somebody wants our emails, they certainly have a right to know office they can send their request to, and county office of law can process that request and they can get any emails they want. That's not a privacy issue at all. I'm just concerned about the ability for us to just put emails up there at random. I don't think that's appropriate, and I certainly don't think that's in the spirit of the right to know law. So if you could do the research and get back to council, I certainly would appreciate it.
Yes, yeah, and it's understandable that when you're sending an email that you know what the rules are.
Okay. We're open for the public comment.
Mr. Chairman, this is Mark Rabo speaking.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a big concern, and I've addressed this to council in the past with regards to these drop boxes for mail-in ballots, is come to my attention that one of the drop box locations, specifically in Hazleton City, at the Hazleton City Hall, and it was said by the solicitor at the election board meeting that it would be secure and there would be surveillance. And there was a video that was circulating on social media, and I've come to look at where the mail drop box is for the mail-in ballots at Hazleton City Hall, and it's on a tabletop, the drop box, and it's not secure because it was said that it would be secure and bolted down to the floor where it couldn't be tampered with. Now, as you know, Mr. Chairman, Act 77 clearly says drop boxes must be secure and under surveillance 24/7. So, I mean, I understand that our sheriff's deputies empty out that drop box, periodically. So my concern is, I hope that the sheriff and the sheriff's deputies and the solicitor and the council and the manager are aware that these drop boxes should be very secure and under compliance with Act 77 of the state statute. Because the mail-in ballots, as you know, Mr. Chairman and members of council, they can change the course of an election. So I would hope that you would take this concern very seriously, as I do, and I said this last year, and I hope that our state legislatures and our delegation do their utmost to ensure going into the future that drop boxes for mail-in ballots, the security of those drop boxes are taken into very serious consideration. And I hope that they would work with our County Bureau of Elections.
Thank you.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much.
Thank
Have
you.
a good evening, council.
Other members of the public? Other members of the public? Okay, hearing none.
Mr. Manta,
Okay, Mr. Manta, you have the floor.
thank you, sir. There was a meeting that was held with the county action group. I didn't hear anything about that this evening. I guess they forgot, or maybe I didn't hear it. And I'd like to hear the results of the meeting and what went on. I think Mr. Griffin was involved in that meeting.
Griffith is the representative.
Yep. Was there anything mentioned about that?
Not this evening. We do the committees in the next week, the next meeting.
Oh.
Mr. Griffith sent the minutes of the meeting, I believe, and they will be posted on the county council page.
The county council page. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. Very good. Any other members of the public?
Are you muted?
Okay, one final thing is we have to have the ad hoc committee for the selection of a attorney. Ms. Radel will be the chair, Ms. McDermott will be the vice chair, and myself. And so they can move ahead. And Ms. Radel, you have the responsibility to move that along. You have a time frame, I think, that you want to meet. So if you would move with that quickly, we appreciate that. Do we have a motion for adjournment?
So moved, Sheila.
Do we have a second?
Second, Leanne.
Ms. McDermott, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any in opposition? Any abstentions? None heard. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Meeting 2 weeks hence. Tomorrow, the audit committee will be meeting at 4:30. Hopefully, we'll have some nice weather so everybody can enjoy the outside. Thank you.
Have a good night, everyone.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Okay.
Good night.